But this guy, he has so much experience on all levels. Coached in college for a very long time. I know you guys only want to know how it was when he was with Miami and he was coaching with Jimmy Johnson, you know. But I also remember that when I came to Dallas Cowboys in 1996, that he was here on the staff. And he's someone that welcomed me and started to teach me things that I thought I already knew coming out of Alabama or from the Green Bay Packers, and he really elevated my game. A lot of people, JT, asked me, where was it the best that you like to play? And I say, hey, Green Bay was kind of fun to traditions and things, but my game actually got better once I got here around the coaching staff. So as a defensive back coach, and then as a defensive coordinator, and then as a head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, he gave me a lot of opportunities to progress to be the best player that I could be while I was in the National Football League. We'll only get him for a certain amount of time tonight, and I don't want to waste his time. I need for you, JT, and everybody to give Dave Campo a big round of applause for being on our show today.
I like that. That's good. I like those applause. Listen, I got a lot more applause when I was an assistant than I did as a head coach. So I'm happy with that, right there.
That's right. So Brian Turner just said this in here. So we probably need to tell everybody where you're at and what you're doing. So someone just made the reference and said, hey, what happened? Are you coaching in Jacksonville? Did you coach in Jacksonville? Why don't you tell us what you're up to right now, Coach? And
when I coached with the Jaguars, I ended up down here in North Florida, and we ended up liking it. So I came back here, and I'm really, I'm not a big golfer. I'm not a big, hobby guy. So I got involved with the radio here, and I'm doing sports radio in Jacksonville with the Jaguar flagship station, 1010XL 96.5 FM. And I'm doing some TV stuff. So I'm around the game, but my stomach and my heart is doing okay because I'm not doing that coaching stuff anymore.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and thank you for taking the time to do this. And JT, I'm going to go ahead and jump on this just because we're right here now. What is a better moment than now? Because he's talking about the beach. Coach, do you go to the beach? You live out in Jacksonville. Do you ever spend time out on the water? Yes or no?
Listen, I don't go near the water because there's sharks out there. So
well, great. You can have it at your house.
Yeah, well, listen, right. Yeah. No, I love the beach, but I do more shark tooth hunting than I do in the water.
Well, let me change your mind real fast because we are proudly brought to you today by Beaches LLC, a company that you need to hear about. So if you can give us 1 minute to listen to us about this, you won't have to go to the ocean anymore. You can find it right in your backyard.
There you go.
Let me tell you about Beaches LLC. Yes, Beaches LLC is your source in the state of Alabama and the Florida Panhandle for exquisite quartz sand beach pools by Biodesign USA. A Biodesign beach sculpted pool is crafted with beach entries, customized seating areas, and swimming zones, and they all can be personalized to your swimming needs. The Biodesign swimming pool is meant to immerse you in your surrounding environment. The illusion of a truly beautiful beach can be created and extended onto the patio area, creating one seamless shore environment. Let them help you turn your dream backyard escape into reality with an eco-friendly, more durable, less time, and less expensive to maintain, totally customizable pool. To learn more about turning your dream into a reality, please visit their website at www.yourbackyardbeach.com. Boy, I tell y'all, man, my setup is freaking flawless, man, on these damn things. Dave, you don't get to hear me every week when I got to introduce that. It is pretty amazing, right, what they do. So we can't get that. Well, I guess they do have some kind of reps up here in Texas or whatnot, but this is based down there like that. You really should look into that stuff because it's pretty absolutely amazing what the cities do. Okay, so y'all okay with just go ahead and jumping into this because I know we got a lot of Alabama fans in. Roll Tide to everybody, and I kind of want to start talking about off-season coach a little bit. So, how many years did you actually coach in college football? Can you? I could look it up on Wikipedia, but you have 10,
26,
15, 26
26
years.
years.
Okay, so when you're talking about college off-season, most of us all we ever think about is the recruiting, particularly now. You know, you're trying to get
Right.
people in. But what's really happening in the coaches' offices? Can you give us two or three things that you're really kind of focusing on in the off season as a coach?
Well, first of all, things have changed over the years. And, I stay pretty close with some of the guys that are still in college football. And, obviously, you guys know that change has happened with this NIL and the transfer portal. So, really, the number one thing is still recruiting. And it's become harder and harder because not only do you have to recruit the guys, in high school, but you also have to recruit your own players because of the transfer portal. So a big part of the head coach's job is recruiting now more so than any other. It puts more on the assistant coaches in dealing with some of the other stuff that we'll talk about. But the head coach right now has to make sure that he puts the program together, that he knows that he's going to lose some guys in the portal. He's got to make sure, for example, if he's going to take receivers, he might take, knowing that he's going to lose a couple, he may take 2 high school receivers, but then he's already in his mind taking 2 guys out of the portal to make sure that they fill the roster up. So this whole thing it's turned almost into the NFL and college football now because, it's you got to keep your guys happy. You don't know exactly who's going to be on your roster from year to year. So you have to manage that. So that's probably number one with a head coach right now. But the other things that you're dealing with, obviously, is you got to get your football team ready. So the off season is when you get your lifting, your running. Most have a great weight training program, and they probably work 4 days a week. 3 of them in the lifting and the mat drills and some of those kind of things. And then the other part that you're dealing with also is now they're doing stuff, they can get together and run plays without the football. So the running plays and those kind of things, they can run through, and most of them do that once a week. And it gives you a chance to kind of run some of the plays and get familiar with it. I would say that's probably the second thing. And then the head coach has to obviously manage that. And then the third thing I would say is they're still involved in fundraising. So a head coach is like a CEO. He's out there schmoozing with the boosters. And there's a lot of, right now, the whole thing is to get modern stadiums and get everything cleaned up in that area. So, they're out, going out and meeting boosters and talking about the program and trying to get money raised. So a head coach today is less about football than he used to be, in my opinion. I think he has to have good coordinators, and even he has to deal with that a little bit, because if you're good, you lose coaches. And, now all of a sudden you go from, your playbook changes if you go from one coordinator to another. So all of that has to be done as well, George.
Yes, okay. And I thank you for that. And I want you to dive into something a little bit for me, because you were talking about the roster and the transfer portal and things of that nature. So how does the process really work when you're trying to, and I know it's different now, so maybe it's not a fair question, but what do you guys do as a staff to really say, these are the guys that we need next by position? You're trying to build a roster. You got a big board up there. There's like a draft room where you say we need more wide receivers and we're more
Absolutely.
linemen, or what is that full staff stuff that's going on there, or what?
Yeah, you meet as a staff all the time, and obviously you look at the cut-ups from the season, which is the same thing you do in the NFL, You look at the areas that of deficiency with what you did offensively and defensively, but some of that is based on the talent you have. So if you know who you're going to lose, guys that are going to be seniors initially, but then the transfer portal changes that a little bit. So, you go up and you say, hey, look, we have to have 8, 9 receivers, whatever it is, and we're probably going to lose. You have to guess a little bit and say we're probably going to lose a couple here or there. That's how you put the roster together. So you need 5 running backs, you need so many linemen, whatever, and that's all up on the board, and you just talk it through. And I think that's a kind of a community decision between the staff, and you call on your assistant coaches in that area too. The guy that's coaching the DBs, he knows what he needs. He knows if we've got cover corners, we're planning on playing man coverage. We don't have any in the building. We better go out and get them.
So, sound like you had a little bit of okay. I'm sorry. This might be disrespectful, but I got to say it just because this is an Alabama show and we beat up on Alabama in Miami in 1989. I think y'all were kind of used to the NIL deals back in the day and paying players. Whatever. No, forget
it. Hey, remember it was the convicts down there. You know what I mean? So, you had Miami Vice rolling on around that time back in the day. I tell you what, that's an interesting question, though, George, or a different comment, because we had 90% graduation rate with our guys at the University of Miami, and I don't think people really understand that. I think everybody had the opinion that there were some guys like Michael Irvin down there that were kind of on the edge, and we had some of those kind of guys, but we didn't have any bad guys. And I say that without any question. We had guys that loved football, which you did at Alabama, I guarantee you, or else you wouldn't have been successful. But we had guys that loved the game, that were willing to work, and they also, we stayed on them. Jimmy stayed on them really a lot with what's going on academically, and that's a big deal, the study halls and all those kind of things. Jimmy wasn't going to, it was all about discipline and making sure that our guys understood what we expected from those guys when we were here.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, Coach. So for years, y'all that just came into the show, one of the things I was talking with Coach Campo was my time that I got to spend with him with the Cleveland Browns. Butch Davis was the head coach at the time, and watching how study sessions worked, for lack of better words, not necessarily with the players, but with coaches, right? Campo being a coordinator, and he's trying to build out his defense. My question to you is, when it gets into the offseason like this, when it gets into the playbook, how much are you emphasizing? What kind of film are you watching? How are you adjusting there? And how much different is that from when you're in season, opposed to off season when it comes to actually designing your playbook?
Well, first of all, you take every defense situation, all those things are broken down, on a computer. So you get an opportunity to watch every play during the season that happened inside the 20-yard line, for example. And I'm talking defense here, but it's both sides of the ball. But, you have that situation. You have all the short yardage plays. You have all of the third down and 2 to 5 and 6 to 10, whatever it is. You've got it broken down into segments. And you sit down as a staff, and what we used to do, and again, remember, George, it's been a long time since I was in college football, but it was very similar to what we did in the NFL. We would spend half the day looking at cut-ups and seeing our deficiencies and the things that we did really well. And if we needed to tweak something, or if we needed to add something, that's one of the things that we did in the off season. And we'd spend half the day doing that. And then the rest of the day would be on what was going on with our team and recruiting and all that kind of stuff. So you look at every play that you had during the year, and if you were struggling in short yardage, that also was a situation where you might have to go out and get a different style running back, or in recruiting, if you weren't getting that third down and 1, and they didn't have anybody that was busting it up in there or whatever. So it all came down to I don't think the playbook changed that much over the years, but it certainly was tweaked, in the offseason to maximize the things you did well and minimize the things that you did poorly.
No, that's awesome and very well put, Coach. And I had the opportunity to go up to speak to one of our friends and buddies, Coach Mike Zimmer. A couple years ago, I went up to Minnesota as an intern up there, and it's just still amazing to me what you guys do in the off season when you're meeting as a defensive staff. And I wouldn't say it got contentious. That's not the right word, but there was so much discussion about why, when you're talking about deficiencies, what can you do to make it different? Does a person need to be in a different spot? Does a terminology have to be different? Is it just a player not getting it?
Right.
So there's so many things that go into that for you to be a successful coordinator.
I can give you a great example. When I was at the University of Kansas, we had a guy by the name of Ja'Cory Shepherd. And Ja'Cory is there, and he's got actually in Dallas now area, he has a training facility now. Love the guy, he's just a great young man. But Ja'Cory was his first year as a freshman. He was a really pretty good receiver for Kansas, okay? And this was before I got there. And he had it seemed like a pretty good future. So when we got there, Charlie Weiss had just come on in there as the head coach at Kansas, new staff. And so he didn't like Ja'Cory. He didn't feel like Ja'Cory was good enough. And so he said, this guy can't play. Well, I took a look at him and I said, hey, listen, if you don't want him, give him to me. I'll take him. He can play in the secondary, I guarantee you. And so that discussion went there. He said, he'll never play. He'll do this and that. And so I said, I'll trade you so-and-so as a receiver. You give me Ja'Cory Shepherd. Well, Ja'Cory Shepherd ended up for 2 years, was all Big 12, one of the 2 years, went to the Philadelphia Eagles and played 3 years for the Eagles and as a corner. And so those kind of discussions are what you're talking about. You're saying, hey, look, I see a guy over there that might be really good at my position. Let's make the switch. And of course, you have to talk to the player. He has to understand. I don't think Ja'Cory was real excited about it at first because, obviously he was a receiver and he thought he did pretty well the first year. But I said, Ja'Cory, you're going to be buried on the depth chart. You're going to be 6th or 7th and you're not going to play. Come on over with me. We'll see what you can do. And I'm telling you got the athletic ability to do this. And that's how it kind of goes.
Yes. Well, I'm going to go ahead and parse Coach's words for him. Wide receivers, y'all soft. Y'all need to come on over here. But anyway.
Is that one of your segues? Is that what you're doing?
Well, yeah. No, actually what I want to segue to is evaluating talent, JT. So even you and I have been talking about this on how you evaluate talent in high school. And we're going to do this a little bit, but I really wanted to, maybe hear from both of you guys when you're looking at guys, how do you know someone has it? So I'm gonna ask JT this first, right?
Don't ask me.
No, so you're looking at JP2, right? And you got to do it somewhat. And you're looking at your defense, and you're trying to figure out, okay, is this the best corner I got? Well, I'm not talking about for a recruiting spot because you got to look inside of this when you're going there. And so now. And I'm not saying you got to be right about this, okay, JT? That's not what I'm doing. I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but Dave Campo is the coach from Kansas, and he's coming in and he's going to ask you who you got that I need to look at. So you got to have some kind of something to be able to say, man, either this guy can play at Kansas or Miami or not. So what is a high school coach do you think is the best thing for a high school coach to be able to do to truly evaluate the talent that he has so he can sell that kid to a college coach?
Okay. Well, when you're talking about schools like that, first you just gotta the first thing that came to mind was, is he even big enough? You know, because I got a corner on the team right now that I think has all the ball skills, all of the um, football IQ, all that kind of stuff. But he's like, I think he's shorter than me right now. I think he's 5'6". Now he's only a sophomore, so who knows what's going to happen? But his mom is about as tall as my mom is, so I don't know that he's gonna. I don't know that he's getting to know 5'10", 6 foot. But the other piece is, once he has those measurables that you may be looking for, usually what I look for after that is kind of his footwork. And then the simplest thing is, does he find himself around the ball? Because I had we actually made a change midway through the season. I had a free safety who at the time I thought was the best guy that we had, because the guy behind him he joined the program late. So at that point, he just didn't know the playbook as well as the guy that we had starting. But then after about halfway through the season, once everything was level, we kind of had a competition during practice. We're just giving the guys reps. And one thing you notice is just every time there's a tackle to be made or the ball is in the air, whether or not he's supposed to be there or not, he is. And I think that goes a long way. It's just knowing where the football is.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, Kelly.
That's good. Yeah.
That's funny. No, we're laughing at this comment. It says "easy on the shirt girl" jokes. JT. He said his mom and her are the same height.
Yeah, right. Consuela. How tall is Consuela?
Well,
She says
how
she's 5
tall
foot.
is she? Yeah, or
Yeah.
how tall does she say she is? Yeah.
She says she's 5 foot. We'll see. That's to be determined. But yeah, so I think anytime you've got a guy that's just around the ball all the time, that's a very good sign. Then the next step to that is not only being around the ball, but then if you're a defensive back, which we're going to look at today, can you get your hand on the ball? So that's kind of step 2. Are you always there? And then step 2 is, can you get your hand on the ball? Meaning PBUs, or just in the vicinity. Maybe it doesn't count as a PBU, but just something that, you hear them footsteps and receivers all of a sudden got alligator arms and don't want to catch the ball. And then
Soft.
Yeah.
step 3 is then
Typical receiver.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then step 3 from there is, now you've been around the ball, you've got your hand on the ball, but then can you repossess the football?
Right.
And there's other things in there that I'm skipping over. Change of direction,
Yeah, there's tons of
balance, all that kind of stuff. But I think those are the 3 easiest things to pick out. Is just, are you around the ball? Can you get your hands on it? And then can you take it away from somebody?
Yep. So let me tell you guys this, and I'm going to follow back up with Coach Campo here in a second. As a head coach, all the schools I've been at, particularly JP2, when we had a lot of guys that were going Division I. Right. So on my prospect sheet, and let's see if Campo thinks this was good or not, but most of the coaches that I was around was like it. So I had my rankings sheet that I actually did because I thought I was a pretty good evaluator. I was doing enough of film study, trying to figure out how to be an NFL scout and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of learned how to write up all these things, right? So when I had my guys, I'd have my little sheet. Because coaches ask for a prospect sheet, right? I think they ask us that, JT, to find out if we're lying, to actually see if we know how good our guys are, if we're just going to try to sell them, right? But I will go ahead and rank them. Hey, I think he's Division I. I think this guy's Division II. I think this guy's Division III. This guy's JUCO. But then I had the other little deal that I'd started to put money. I call JT money, so I had my little money sign. Said, hey, this guy got this money sign on here. Hey, I'm thinking he's gonna make it to the pros. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, this is good. This dude's good. He's a freshman. He's 6'6", wide receiver, already running the 4.5, whatever it is. He's probably gonna go there, right?
And so what I did find was that I thought a lot of coaches really appreciated that because I wasn't trying to sell them on the 5'6" corner. Um, if it was, a power five coming in, they're like, well, we don't want that dude. I'm not going to bring this back to my head coach. So give me your dude. So I would at least do that. That didn't mean they didn't take a look at him. I gave them the whole sheet, said, hey, you can go through here and have your GAs look at every single one of these films.
Yeah,
But these
reevaluate.
these are the five that I'm saying, I think. And then I would wait, and then I would call them back, and I would say, okay, what did you think about those five guys? And they'd have to give me some kind of talk, whether or not, because all I wanted to do was pique their interest, show their highlight films on things like that. So I thought it went pretty well. So, Coach, I want to take this to the other side. We just kind of hit on this. What do we think from high school to college? What about get to the NFL? Now you're an NFL coach, and you're watching. I don't know. What do you guys do? You're watching college film. What does that whole deal look like? You're going to check out these guys from Alabama. What are y'all looking for? What is it that you're trying to say, hey, this guy fits at whatever team I'm coaching for?
Well, first of all, the first thing you look at in my mind, and we have everybody has those sheets, not the, first round, second round, whatever. It's an evaluation sheet, where you're talking about hands, speed, quickness, acceleration, burst, whatever it is. The first thing I look for was size and speed. If I've got a guy that's got the size that I'm looking for and it's got the speed to go with it, then I'm going to take a really good look at that guy. Now, then it comes down to what JT was talking about. Is he a guy? Is he a dog? And I'm looking for dogs. I'm looking for guys that want to get around the ball, just like JT was talking about. I want guys that are going to finish plays. I want guys that are, if I'm looking at a guy and I'm trying to decide whether or not he can play for us, I want a guy that's going to be relentless at what he does. And so those three things right there, I'm not even looking at a guy unless they have those three things. Now it comes down to foot quickness, acceleration, burst, those kind of things. And then you're looking at
That's how you start kind of separating people.
His technique. Yeah. That now, who is this guy? What picture does he paint? Is he a guy that is, can change direction? He's got the hips to change direction, but not only that, can he burst? Can he come out? How fast can he come out? Every position is different. There's a different skill set, obviously, for a defensive lineman than there is for a DB. But if you're just talking about DBs, I want a guy that's going to be around the football, a guy that's got the burst ability, because that's the biggest thing. The receiver knows where he's going. Mm-hmm. The DB doesn't. So he's got to be a guy that has that instinct and the burst out of his pedal or whatever. And you as a coach have to decide once you get him, what his strength is and what his weakness is. For example, if you've got a corner that can't pedal and you got him, then you side slide him. There's no reason to take a guy that can't do it and try to make him do it.
Yeah.
And so if you want a guy that's going to be a backpedaler, then you better make sure he's got backpedal ability.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick, because I've been saying this, and I think I have to convince some people that backpedaling is a skill that not everybody has. And
Correct.
You can't teach it to everybody.
Correct.
So there's some corners in typically corners, because I would say if you're a safety and can't backpedal, then
right.
you're a corner now.
Forget it. Right. Yeah.
But there are some corners that either have to shuffle, bail, or kick slide, or
Correct.
whatever you want to do, because they just, for whatever reason, can't backpedal. Do you see that being kind of an issue even when you get up to the pro level of just like, hey, this dude's an athlete, but he can't backpedal, so we're just going to do something a little bit different with him?
Yeah, I don't think you see it as much in the pros. What you have a problem evaluating, from what I see, is when you have a college kid that's shuffling. You don't know whether or not he can pedal or not. That's where the workouts come in, and all those kind of things, because some guys, that's just what they teach. You know, they don't teach a back pedal. They just, you know, a college coach might just teach that shuffle, slide, I call it, slide pedal, whatever it is. That's an issue, because you can't tell for sure whether or not guy can do it or not. But if you have a guy that can't pedal, then you got to do something with him. He's yours. You got to let him have a chance to be successful. But talking about what you're looking for, you know Darren Woodson very well, George, right?
Yes.
You played with him.
I know that guy. I hope he gets in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Darren Woodson, I went out to look at Sparks, the cornerback, to play in the NFL.
Felipe.
Out at Arizona State. And I'm watching, but you know, you go to the workouts. I think you probably did the same thing. Well, not at the high school level, but at the college level, when the scouts come in for a workout, it usually is in the afternoon. And in the morning, they have a film session set up where the scouts can go in and they just run through game film, you know. And so I'm out there along with a bunch of scouts, and I'm watching the game film, and I'm watching this kid Woodson, and we didn't have him. We had him on our list, kind of like what you were talking about. He wasn't at the top of that list. Felipe Sparks was, but he was down there about 5 or 6. And I'm watching him play Willie linebacker, and he is running all over the field. I mean, when the ball gets somewhere, he's standing next to him, JT, just like we were talking about, right? Well, some of the scouts are sitting there, and they're going, I don't know about this Woodson guy. You know, he doesn't make that many tackles. You know, he's around the ball, but he doesn't, you know, I don't see him, you know, he's not standing out. Well, I'm watching him run, and I'm looking at his size, you know, 6'2" and a half, about 218, 220. And so we go out, and I said, look, Darren, I'm going to work you out as a DB. So he said, no problem. Well, we get to the 40-yard line, and run the 40-yard dash, and I'm standing at the end. He comes blowing out of there and runs a 4.37 at 6'2" and a half, 220 pounds. That's what I'm talking about when I say size, speed, and around the football. Well, he comes into us. We end up taking him in the second round. He has the career tackle record for the Cowboys and still has it. And he was around the ball all the time. And that's kind of where now we had to figure out, what are we going to do with him? Well, he started on all special teams his first year. He was a backup safety. The next year, Jimmy Johnson walks in. He says, Coach, we're going to start Darren Woodson at safety next year. And I said, well, you know, Jimmy, I'm not sure he's ready. You know, he's a rookie. I was a little nervous about having a young guy back there. He looked at me and he said, Dave, we're starting Darren Woodson at safety next year. And I looked at him and I said, Jimmy, that's exactly what I was going to say. We're starting him at safety next year. And then, so I guess my point is, George and JT, scouting is not as an exact science. It's not an exact science. When you're looking at guys, you're trying to determine where does he fit with your guys, and you have to have about 4 or 5 things like you're talking about that puts him in a position to where, you know what, I think I can do something with this guy. Because like George, you said it earlier, when you came into the league, you thought you knew about everything there was to know coming out of Alabama, because you had good coaches, you had great teams, you know, but when you get to the NFL, it doesn't end there. It ends at the end of your career, because you're going to continue to learn all the way through. So if you've got that basis that you're looking for, and a guy fits into that, then you have to have the ability to say, I can see this guy 3 years from now, what he's going to do, you know, how he's going to improve, what's going to happen from there.
Okay, excellent. So we got to get to a film here real quick because I know we're going around. Just because you're giving us so much information. Thank you, Coach, for opening up and giving us a lot of this. I know the people in the chat are loving this. You got people saying the college kids need to hear this, and it's great. But I got one final question, just because you brought this up. One final question, because you were talking about not knowing if kids can really backpedal or not. So, based upon that, will you, as an NFL coach, write off, like a better word, or not go visit someone if someone uses a scheme that doesn't necessarily fit your or a technique? So if you're saying, hey, I wonder if they're backpedal, but they only do shuffle, 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 are you going to take the chance and just go figure it out and say, can we change them? Or are you kind of like, I'm going to go over here because I know they're already teaching it?
How big and how fast he is, and is he around the football?
If he's just kind of average on the fringe, you ain't going, is what she said.
There's guys, I can give you another example. Everson Walls couldn't backpedal, but he could intercept 11 balls in one season.
Right.
So there's other things that come in, but, again, you have to, the thing that you have to have as a high school coach, I would think, and as a college coach and a pro coach, you have to have a vision. You have to have a vision for kids, and it's the same as a coordinator. You have to have a vision of what you want that football team to look like when you bring a guy in there. And it's not just about how good he is. It's about, does he fit your vision of what you're looking for with your team? The best coaches in the NFL, and I think Jimmy Johnson deserves the Hall of Fame because he knew what he wanted his team to look like, and that's the guys that we brought in. He didn't, a lot of times he wouldn't even look at a guy on film. He would say, how big is he? How fast is he? Can he play for us? And we knew what he was looking for, what his vision was for everything. So to me, that's the biggest thing right there.